Hey, how's it going, everyone? Tim Brown here to talk to you for Monday Morning Marketing and Coffee. And I'm going to talk about 7 luxury marketing strategies that will help your brand. So, not all of us are in luxury marketing, but there are things to learn here. And there are things that you can apply to your business, even if you're not in a luxury market. So I'm going to talk through 7 of these things. Um, you might think that it's their locations. Where are they located? Location is everything, right? That's not something I'm going to talk about today. You might think it's their expensive advertising, but then again, some of these companies spend less than their competitors. So what I'm going to talk about is a little different than that. Definitely it's positioning. Positioning is huge, but I have 7 essentially things that help you position your brand a little bit differently, your company a little bit differently, to allow you to charge more. A good question I think I'll start with is, how would what would it look like if your service or your product, if you tripled the price right now? What could you do differently for your company? I feel like it's an interesting writing exercise for sure. What could you do differently? What could the company do differently if it was triple the price? The product or service was triple the price. Certainly, could involve service. What level of service could you include in that price? What details of the product could you increase the quality of if you were to sell it for that much? And another, just an exercise for you guys to think about would be what what was I going to say? Going live is crazy, by the way. The other thing I was going to think about was, I think it's important. It would be a good exercise to come up with 1 or 2 luxury brands that you really like and you want to learn from over the next, couple months or a year. Kind of study them. What luxury brands would you want to be like? I've got a blog post that we put out this weekend about, it talks about 7 different companies. One is Louis Vuitton. One is, let's see, Coco Chanel. One is Tesla, talking about high-end watches and Yeezys. I'm going to pop that in the comments here. So I think that the thing I'm asking is, what companies would you want your brand to be like if it was like some of these luxury companies? So there's definitely things to learn from them. And I think one thing you'll notice that's pretty consistent amongst all these luxury, hey, what's up, Wayne? Amongst all these luxury companies is there is a ton of very good service. So they spend a lot of time on service. And but here are 7 powerful strategies I'm going to go through. One is scarcity. Make it clear that there are a limited number of items available. So if you go into a Louis Vuitton store, there's not 10 of every item on a rack moving back into the store. There's 1. And frankly, the implied possibility is that if you don't buy that one, that that's the last one. If you don't buy that pink scarf, there's not another one. Now, they might have one in the back, but it's that psychological factor there. E-commerce stores do this. I'm doing very good, Wayne. Thank you. E-commerce stores do this. How are you doing, by the way? They do this by saying there's only 3 left in stock. So there's this scarcity factor. You might have been on a store before, an e-commerce store, and you're like, only 3 left in stock. I'm sorry to tell you, that's usually a tactic just to get you thinking that if you don't buy now, that there won't be one. So scarcity is the first one. Second is affluence. So pictures of customers enjoying your products or services should showcase the people that your customer wants to be like. So Coco Chanel, this example on our blog post, Coco Chanel, it's their Instagram feed. Every single post is of a very high-end looking audience. They're partying, they're having fun, they're doing, they're interacting with the product. They are glamorous, and they look like their life is better than mine. I'll be honest. I mean, so what is the principle at work here? You could take a moral stance on that or something, but what is the principle here? It's that you want people to want to be there. So if you have if you're using this luxury marketing tactic, you want people to want to be there. So number 3 is consistency. So imagine spending $80,000 on a high-end Tesla, and then you get a default or faulty display screen. Quality assurance and quality assurance on the quality assurance has to be part of any luxury brand. So like I said at the beginning of this, what could you do if you charged 3 times what you're currently charging? What kind of level of service? What level of quality assurance could you do to create that consistency in your company? There's even lower end brands that do quality assurance very well too. So it's extremely important though in luxury marketing. Number 4, pricing. So this is an interesting one, and I kind of started with it because I think it's kind of a provocative question. What could you do for your company or for your brand if you charge 3 times what you're currently charging? So if you charge 3 times what you're currently charging, frankly, it creates another level of scarcity. So you show up at a store and you see this thing, it's super expensive. You really want it, but it's super expensive. Part of what the psychology behind that is other people don't have this. So if you want to use this for your company, that's great. And if you're not marketing a luxury brand or you're not marketing a company, maybe consider how this is being used on you currently. It's definitely useful to understand the psychology of what these companies are doing. So it's definitely a thing where people go, I don't have the money yet, but I want to get the money to buy this. And so that's one thing that happens when you price your thing higher. And the second is people think to themselves, if I can, I want to buy this, but I know that the other people that I know won't be able to buy this. So there's this exclusivity there in the pricing. It's built into the pricing. It's another thing that creates scarcity. So, if you wanted to buy this watch for $5,000, maybe your friend could only spend $300 and you have something that they could never have. So just to think about, that's what luxury brand is, part of what they're doing. Number 5, social proof. So showcase the line out the door. So in a physical location, when there's new Yeezys at the shoe store, you see this line going out the store. If you're going to brunch and you see the line out the door, and it goes down the block a ways. This is parodied on Portlandia, and it's hilarious because there's like an encampment halfway back on the line. But what is the psychology behind that? Because people go and get in line. People get in line because it looks like the place is good. It must be good if there's a line out the door. And another way you can do that on your website, there's a lot of different technologies that do this, but they pop up with a little alert that says, Tom nearby just purchased 3 of these or whatever. There's like a little alert that says somebody nearby purchased. This is the psychological principle that makes that a smart thing to do on your website, is to tell people, especially if you're in an e-commerce store, who else is buying, that there's other people buying and they've bought recently. Social proof, super powerful. So, just to get a little bit nitty gritty here, if you guys have ever done Google Ads, there's definitely a value to pull off, use as a negative keyword on your Google Ads, cheap, free, and affordable, and other keywords like this from your Google search ads and any other search ads that you do. Taking off these cheap, free, and affordable terms, especially if you're looking for a high-end clientele. So it's super tactical, but it's super, super powerful. Definitely add negative keywords if you're doing Google Ads. So I'm gonna move on. Don't know how many of you are doing Google Ads, but that's important. 7, know your audience. So I feel like probably more people have touched Facebook ads before on here. Facebook has started to take down economic targeting, like income, house value, those types of things. So my question to you is, if you're looking for a high-end audience, if you're looking for somebody that can afford luxury products and services, what are they following on Facebook? Are they following GQ? Are they following, what pages is your ideal customer following? And I think that this is super important no matter what you're doing. If you're running a nonprofit, if you're, whatever you happen to be doing. What's up, Shane? I'd love to do that with you. Thank you. Let's organize it after this. So knowing your audience, figuring out what are they following, what are they interested in, is very powerful. And there's a lot of, I would say, editorial sites that they may be following, and thinking about what those are. So whether it's, Inc., GQ, whether they're following Coco Chanel or Louis Vuitton, those types of things, what are those people following that would be ideal customers for your brand? So that's another thing that you could do to, mimic the success that luxury brands have. What is the real difference, though? I'm just going to kind of wrap this up with a little tidbit. What's the difference between a commodity, meaning you're competing with everybody, and a luxury brand where it's set on a pedestal and people will pay a premium to get that product? Well, one is, I really think it does come down to pricing sometimes. If I go into Michael Kors, going into these different stores with my wife, Michael Kors or Kate Spade, these things, they're close to a luxury brand, but not quite, right? They're always on sale. And often, you think about, like, metaphorically, they're gathering dust. A luxury brand, on the other hand, is prized, it's set on a pedestal, and it's generally pretty consistent pricing. You know what I mean? So, and they're not waving it around. They're not saying, everybody, come one, come all. They're saying, we know who our customer is, ideal customer. So the question is, who's your ideal customer? And really defining that. Write down 10 adjectives about who's your ideal customer. And I think that will help you kind of hone in on how you could, charge more. Because if you really figure out who that ideal customer is, you can increase what they need. You can increase the level of service. You can increase the things that they need, and thus, be able to charge more there. My wife said this recently, window shoppers can be your biggest advocates. Because, just because they haven't purchased yet, a window shopper can tell their friends about what you do. So if you have people, people call them all kinds of things, like feet draggers, or people that are kind of sitting around the perimeters that think they want to buy, but maybe they haven't made a decision yet. Don't think of those people as a negative thing. Think of those people as they can be your biggest advocates, and they can spread the message because they want it, but they just haven't made that decision yet. So they're more likely to talk about it to their friends. And, you ruin that by focus on lowering your price, by coming back to them and saying, hey, can we, what if we cut it in half, those types of things. So I don't know how many of you guys are doing pricing for your company, but the principle stands whether you're marketing or sales. Instead of, doing that, lowering your price, instead of focusing on increasing the value of the product or service you're providing. So if you're in a sales or marketing position, instead of figuring out how can we put on the sale, how can we add something that's valuable to this that would make it, very hard for the person not to buy. And I think that luxury brands have done that very well, and they continue to do it, right? They say, what could we add to this? Let's add one more layer. Let's add a little bit more value. And thus it becomes hard to turn it down, even if it's, expensive. All right, well, that's my spiel for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. I appreciate your attention. I really do appreciate you guys spending time with me on Monday Morning Marketing and Coffee. And I don't have coffee today, but I hope you do. And I hope you guys have an amazing President's Day, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. Do a little bit more of what you love this week, and I'll see you next week.